E.N.D here. Day 4 for the spoilers of Zendikar Rising. Some people in the community are arguing that Zendikar Rising power level is quite low. Yes, I must admit that the power level of Zendikar Rising is quite low, but we're getting very strong lands, dual lands, double face cards, lands. We're getting also expeditions, we're also getting fetch lands, we're also getting box stoppers, so something has to balance them out. So power level is going down, but we get more and more extra things in this particular set. Let's start our spoiler day 4. Royal Eruption, 1 and 1 red, it's a sorcery, kicker 5, it deals 3 damage to any target. If the spell was kicked, it deals 5 damage instead. Bubble Snare, 1 blue, kicker 2 and 1 blue, enchant creature. Whenever it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. This is a very interesting card, it's just a common. Basically, for 1 blue, you can enchant a creature. The creature, if the creature is tapped, it will not untap during its controller's untap step. If that creature is not tapped, therefore it can block. But whenever that creature is tapped or attacks and becomes tapped, that creature will not untap during its controller's turn. Expedition Champion, 2 and 1 red, it's a 2/3, gets +2/+0 as long as you control another warrior. Spare Supplies, 2, it's an artifact, enters the battlefield tapped. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, 2 and tap, you sacrifice and draw a card. Cunning Geysermage, 2 and 1 blue, it's a 3/2, it has kicker 2 and 1 blue. When enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return up to 1 other target creature to its owner hand. Fearless Fledgling, 1 and 1 white, it's a 1/1 landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it, it gains flying until end of turn. Cinderclasm, for 1 and 1 red, it has kicker 1 red, it deals 1 damage to each creature. If it was kicked, it deals 2 damage to each creature instead. Merfolk Falconer, 3 and 2 blue, it's a 4/4 flying. Whenever you cast a kicked spell, you scry 2. Lalmage Familiar, 1 green and 1 blue, it's a sea mage creature, 2/4, you tap for 1 green or 1 blue. Whenever you kicked a spell, you gain 2 life. Attended Healer, 3 and 1 white, it's a 2/3, whenever you gain life for the first time, each turn create a 1/1 white cat creature token. For 2 and 1 white, another target cleric gains lifelink until end of turn. Lit Form Blight, 1 and 1 black, enchant aura, enchant land. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Enchanted land loses all land type and ability and has tap for 1 colorless. And tap, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color. This is a very interesting enchantment because you can enchant a land an opponent controls so that it will lose its abilities, or you can tap 1 of your lands so that you can pay 1 life and add 1 mana of any color. So it's a very interesting enchantment when you use it in your favor or against your opponent. Kabira Plateau, one of the double-faced cards, in this case land, enters the battlefield tapped, you add 1 white and or you can cast it as an instant spell. Kabira Takedown, 1 and 1 white. These damage equal to number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. If you choose to play the land, you cannot transform it back. If you choose to play the instant, you cannot transform it back to a land. Muraza's Spoutling, 2 and 1 green, it's a 3/2, kicked 1 and 1 green. Enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target card with a kicker ability from your graveyard to your hand. Skyclave Treasure, 4 and 1 blue. Look at the top X cards of your library. X is 3 plus the number of creatures in your party. Put 3 cards from among them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any random. If you don't know how to play party, I did a tutorial video how the party mechanic works. Iridescent Horn Beetle, 4 and 1 green, it's a 3/4. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 green instinct creature token for each +1/+1 counter you've put on creatures under control this turn. Kazul Cliff, another double-faced land, in this case will tap for 1 red. The instant, it's Kazul Fury, 2 and 1 red instant. As additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature, it deals damage equal to that sacrifice creature's power to any target. Same as the white land, You can choose to play the land or you can choose to play it instead, but you cannot transform them back. Crackshell Ballot, 5 and 2 green. This is the first rare. It's a 6/6. Kicker 2 and 1 green. Can be countered. It has hexproof. It has haste. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counters on it. Yes, it's a 7-drop. It's a 6/6, but it cannot be countered. It has hexproof and it also has haste. And if you manage to kick that, and we're talking about 10 mana, it enters the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counter on it. That is 10/10. Inscription of Ruin, 2 and 1 black. Kicker 2 and 2 black. Choose one. If Inscription of Ruin it was kicked, choose any number instead. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Return target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Destroy target creature converted mana cost 3 or less. So, for 3 mana, 2 and 1 black, you can choose any one of them, which is already very, very good. But if you manage to kick it, let's say you are in a late game, you have abundant mana, you can kick it and you choose any number instead. Thieving Skydiver, 1 and 1 blue, it's a 2/1. Kicker X, X can be 0. Flying, whenever enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to Thieving Skydive. Because X can be 0, if you play this particular spell, let's say for Kicker X, that is 0, you still have any triggers related to Kicker spell related to any spell that has if a spell was kicked. Kargan Intimidator, 1 and 1 red, it's a 3/1. Can block, cowards can block warriors. For 1, you choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. Target warrior gains trample until end of turn. Basically, you can pump the creature 3 times during the turn, but you have to choose one each time. So you cannot pump it twice, the +1/+1. You can put the +1, you can do the coward, you can do the trample, but you cannot do them twice the same ability. Pilot Word Sculptor, 4, 1 red and 1 green. It's a 5/5. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/1 plant creature token for each basic land you control. Very good. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put 4+1/+1 counter on target plant you control. It's a very, very good card because it's a 6-drop, yes, but it has green and red and green. We know that green ramps very, very fast, so you can arrive at 6 mana quite fast. When it enters the battlefield, you put that 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. So if you have basic lands, you still have a lot of green plant creatures. When you put another land in play, you put 4+1/+1 counter on target plant. So you can pump the same plant or pump different plants. So it's a very good creature. It's a legendary creature, and this can be a very good commander. The first mythic. This is a double face mythic land. All double face mythic lands will enter the battlefield tapped unless you pay 3 life. You add, in this case, 1 red, Shatter Skull, the Hammer Pass, you add 1 red, but if you choose to play the sorcery, which is X and 2 red, it is X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures or planeswalker. If X is 6 or more, it is twice X damage divided as you choose among them instead. It's a very good sorcery, especially for red. So these cards, they are very useful in my opinion, because if you draw a land late in the game and you don't need a land, you can choose to play the sorcery instant or any spell that is on one side of the face. If you draw this card in the beginning of your game and you need a land, you can put it in play. If you still need your land, you can pay those 3 life and the land enters the battlefield not tapped. The blue double-faced mythic land, Seagate Reborn, same, enters the battlefield tapped unless you pay 3. It taps for 1 blue, but you can choose to play the sorcery, Seagate Restoration, 4 and 3 blue. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand +1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Same thing as the red double-faced mythic card. You can choose to play the land if you draw it and you need a land. You can choose to play the sorcery if you draw this card in a late game and you don't need a land, so you can play the sorcery. Last card in the spoiler, Morok, Fury of Aukum, 4 and Turret. This is a very interesting card. It's a legendary creature, Minotaur Warrior. It's a 6/6. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it has attacked this turn. So if it's your combat phase, you attack with your creatures will get a +1/+0 for that particular attack phase. But landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's another additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. Therefore, let's say you are in your main phase, you put a land in play, you will have an additional combat phase after your first combat phase. So let's say you put only one land, there is an additional combat phase, you go to combat, you attack, your creatures will get +1/+0. That combat phase will end, you have an additional combat phase, you attack again, and your creatures will get a +2/+0. Now, let's go back. Main phase, you put a land, and you put another land. Let's say you have cards like Cultivate, for example, where you can put another land in play. You put another land in play, you will have 2 additional combat phase. So first combat, they get +1/+0. Second combat, they get +2/+0. Third combat, they get +3/+0. So it's a very interesting and strong card. Yes, it's a 6-drop, but I think probably standard this card will not see play standard, but I think commander, which every legendary creature is targeting commander, in commander this card can be devastating. So these were the spoilers for today, day 4 for the spoilers of Zendikar Rising. Subscribe to my channel for more and more interesting videos about Magic the Gathering, spoilers of Zendikar Rising, and the collectible world.